Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a sort of not abandoned, but I have not been working on this as much as I like to. Another opening, and we are again covering a local, which I try to do a local story. And the story is about a play that has closed, which is okay, but we're going to promote the theater out my wazoo. And the play was done at the Academy Players of Rhode Island. And it was George Orwell's 1984, The Experience. So we'll talk about how this was, it was adapted a couple of times. And of course, so anyways, we're welcoming the director. I don't know how these work out when I record it, whether you're going to be flipped, but right now he's up in the corner, Jacob King, and he has his little name there. Down at the bottom is Tim Brown. So Jacob is the director and force behind it, because we'll discuss that it was more than just someone presenting a play or even someone being tapped. I've been tapped. Someone said, we want to do Steel Magnolias. Will you direct it? So it wasn't my choice, whatever. But this 1984 was Jacob's baby, and I'll explain about that. Tim was basically, there's no other way to term it, but the lead, and he did tour de force performance in this production as Winston. And again, before we got to get into it, I mean, everyone knows 1984. I read it in high school. I went back and reread the actual book because I wanted to remember some things about it. But the play is so amazing because it's true to the book, but it's when I read the book, I said, gee, it's not as emotionally involving as the play is, even just in the text. But we'll talk about that in a moment. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good. We want people to see that you do speak, that you have voices.
I do have vocal cords. Yes.
Yes, you do. And we'll get into, let's start with a little bit of background, just, the kind of resume, the front sheet of your resume, so people know, as we're talking, where you come from in the theater business. So, Jacob, let's start from you. Again, this is an avocation, but it says in the program that this was your directorial debut.
It was.
And if anybody who saw the play like I did, he's lying. Absolutely pulling your leg. Okay. Go ahead. Tell us how you've never done anything besides this masterpiece. Go ahead.
Oh my God, stop it.
Where'd you come from?
That's so nice. So I grew up born and raised in Cranston. I went to Cranston High School East, graduated from there. I went to the Film and Screen Studies program at Pace University, New York City, for my education in college. Still not quite done yet, but we're getting there. Otherwise, I've been a performer with Academy Players for almost 10 years now. My first show there was Blues in the Night back in 2016. We're actually by 2 weeks ago, it will have been 10 years. So it's been 10 years since I've been doing stuff with Academy. Yeah. So we have that, and this show kind of came about also 10 years ago when the Broadway production happened. I kind of became really fascinated with the story. I read the book, and then I kind of kept my eyes out for when the licensing would be coming out. And then I kind of fell into this other adaptation by Robert Owens, Will Nihal Jr., and William A. Miles Jr. that was done back in the 60s. It was missing a lot of the nitty-gritty of the book. It still had the emotional wherewithal to it, but it didn't have a lot of the physical intensity that it needed. So with that, I put up a pitch together while I was doing Alice by Heart with Academy. It's this show I've pitched to other companies before. I actually got a green light for it back in 2019 at the Artist Exchange, right before COVID kind of, ended the world. We were literally a week out from starting rehearsals, and
good. You didn't get into it yet. That's it's good rehearsals.
Yeah, we had fully casted the show and everything. We had like our first meeting and everything with everybody, and so it was rough. But I, pitched it again to companies around New York City. A lot of them said no. A lot of them thought it would be a too high budget of production. And then I was doing Alice by Heart, and I just kind of had this inkling that I should send it to the board at Academy. My co-director, Melissa Thomas, who I love so dearly, and my best friend and stage manager, Shania Fenton, they both were kind of the two people that really told me, like, this is worth pitching. This is worth selling to people. This is a project that should be seen, after me not believing that it should be for a long time. So with all that, the show kind of came to be by me sending in this really incredibly detailed pitch that had everything you could possibly ask for, like set models, revenue projections, everything like that. Sent it on in, and I was very shocked with how quickly they responded. They responded very fast with a yes. And then we were kind of just off to the races, and casting was a dream. We casted the show in quite literally, not even saying this, like we cast it in 10 minutes. It was one of the coolest experiences of my life. So, yeah.
Now, what I need to point out, of course, again, for people who don't see it, and that's too bad, and hopefully your production, I'm just the play, your production somehow can come back for a longer run somewhere, but it was in the little black box, which works perfectly. And obviously you were involved, Jacob, with the whole, when you're there, again, it borders on, and I've seen shows that are technically better done as a movie. But yours had all the technical aspects, but you were right there. I mean, I was in the front row.
Yeah.
And so you had a video. You had video playing. Okay, you had lights, you had sound, you had, and we'll get into it, the horrible torture effects. And I'm assuming he laughs. Tim, you didn't look like you were laughing when you were having your teeth pulled out, but
I loved it. I loved it.
Like, we had a really great time choreographing that.
My wife is an oral surgeon, or was, she's retired. And I didn't know about I know there was torture. I didn't know, but she didn't come. She did there go. She would have, but if she had come, she could have been on the floor. But
yeah, probably.
But I'm sure you had, obviously you had help, but I know I've seen your Facebook page has you with a camera. So you have done, this was not strange to you. You didn't have to say, someone make me a video of somebody, or do this or do that. You kind of knew how it should be done, and obviously you had help.
Oh, definitely. We had the incredible Michael Carnevale, who has done stuff at Academy before. He's a local cinematographer and photographer. I adore him. He is like a dream to work with. Fun fact about most of those videos are live and not pre-recorded. So all of the scenes in the apartment, all of the announcement scenes, those are being done backstage while the show is happening.
I wondered about that.
Yeah.
No. The only reason that I thought, at least again, I don't know all the characters' names, but the one who is speaking for Big Brother.
Yes, the announcement, the loudspeaker woman, yes.
And does that character have a name?
She's just called the loudspeaker.
Loudspeaker. Okay, so that's how she was categorized.
Yeah.
And so but there was a slip in the program that the loudspeaker was going to be played at this performance by X. And I went, this was at intermission or whatever. I go, well, wait a minute. She's, it's on tape. What do you mean it's being clicked?
Yeah.
So that was my first tip. And then after I went home, I said, oh, come on. They didn't do the apartment scenes live, did they?
Yes, they did.
This was just out of your brain, Jacob, right? I mean, it's not just a script. Give you any indication of how to do anything.
No, the original script that we worked off of didn't have any of the video feed elements, because again, it was produced originally in the 60s. They wouldn't have really had a lot of those resources. A lot of the inspiration for the live feed elements came actually from the Broadway production, because the Broadway production was very notorious for using live feeds for just a singular set backstage, which was the Winston and Julia apartment, and those sequences were a lot shorter in that version. Most of the action took place on the stage, and a lot of the stuff was already pre-recorded. I really was like, we need to have live video the whole time, because we need that spontaneity, number one, and number two, because the space is so small, we could do moments where it goes from live video straight into onstage acting. And that, thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I am so excited to see something in my state, like you said, Broadway this, Chicago that, or whatever. But to have something done this way, okay. Well, I can always talk with my wife all the time, so I'm going to stop talking now. But all right, I'm flipping to Tim here now. Tim, were you tapped to say, "Hey, come," or did you read the script when you heard it was being done? How did you connect to the script or to the show? Either one. Which
I to kind of like even before even before I was interested in doing 1984, knew it was happening at Academy. I'd always been drawn to. I'm a straight play guy. I love musicals, but I usually work behind the scenes on musicals. I'm not much of a singer or dancer. So I love straight plays, but specifically the gritty ones, the ones that people walk away from a little uncomfortable, a little like we got taught a lesson whether we wanted to or not. Like I've done Hamlet, I've done Lord of the Flies. Me and my best friend in college, we did. He wrote his own show and was very very gritty. So I've always been particularly attached to works like that. So when I moved to Rhode Island about a year ago, and I'd been seeing shows at Academy for years before that. So my friend Thomas, who played Syme, actually, he said, "Hey, 1984 is coming up. I know that's your jam." I'm like, "Oh, that's absolutely my jam." And I'd read the book in high school, so I did actually read the script version of it, or I didn't watch anything or read anything going into it. I do like to, if I have a semblance of, I like to have a semblance of what the play is about, but I like to, read the script before going into it. I'm like, let's go in blind, and then we'll kind of, play. We'll kind of discover it as we go. But no, I've always been really attached to the hardcore, the gritty, the things that teach or show or display a very uncomfortable truth. And 1984 has always been, I really enjoyed it in high school. I think, you can say this about a lot of things, but especially 1984. I mean, in today's day and age, there's almost too many parallels you can make. So I'm like, this is a good one to show the public. So I like, I like kind of bringing my family to shows and be like, oh, you're going to watch a lot of weird stuff, especially to me on stage. So get ready. And they're used to it. So that's what I really like about, that's what drew me to 1984.
Now, you can be, maybe he should plug his ears, but I just want to ask, was he your first choice? Was there a contest going on for his role?
No, there was no contest.
Thank you.
So we had about 25 auditioners. It was a very small pool of people for an 8-person cast. And we were really like, oh my God, we're not going to find a Winston. We're not going to find a Winston. We were so freaked out because nobody that had walked in had really struck that chord of like this like timidness, but underneath having this like bombastic likeness to him. Like you need somebody with both of those ranges who can go from being incredibly timid to incredibly on the edge in like a moment's notice. With Timmy, he walked in and his energy was just already perfect. And I grabbed Melissa's hand and I like squeezed it really tight. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And so I was like, I fully was so convinced we weren't going to find Winston all day. And so he walked in and immediately he walked out and I was like, check. Okay. We don't have to worry about that anymore. And let's move on. Thank you. Like when I say we cast the show in 10 minutes, Timmy, Sarah, our Julia, and Larry, our O'Brien, all three of them walked into the room and immediately we checked them off. Like it was like the character literally walked into the room. It was so insane. And when we did callbacks we did interview style, like job interview style, instead of doing like just readings, because I wanted to get to know the people and like know who I'm working with before we actually get into the room on a day-to-day basis.
I really like that.
And Timmy was so gung-ho about literally everything. And I would not have thought that from the first time he walked into the room. And so he had that range. And so I was like, this is just perfect. It's perfect. So yeah, like he was immediately like, that's what it said. Yep.
Now, I'm going to ask questions as I think about them because I'm very old and they go out of my head. um, as I was talking about intimacy earlier, kissing, hugging, whatever. Now, you have some scenes, Tim, with Julia. Did you just take to it right away? Was it uncomfortable in the beginning? I'm always curious this kind of stuff.
It was similar in the sense that we started off like when we would run through those scenes, we just kind of like, oh, kiss, okay, lean in, smooch, whatever, not actually touching, just kind of miming it. And we did that for a pretty, a good chunk of the rehearsals. What I like to think is that, you kind of build up trust as people, as co-workers. It sounds so weird, but you know what I mean. Co-actors.
Essentially, yeah. At least for this process, the way that we scheduled this process, it basically was like a second job. So you pretty much were doing stuff with your coworker. So I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, and that's kind of how you build up trust. You build up a level of friendship, and then it gets to the point we had me and Sarah and and Katya, who was the swing, she played Julia for 2 nights. We said, okay, let's bring Jacob aside and kind of have like we wanted to have a very private rehearsal, just the 3 of us and Jacob, to kind of establish what those boundaries are, what everyone's comfortable with. It was very similar. Like, we kind of built up that trust. We were just miming it, and then came that rehearsal, that intimacy rehearsal of like, okay, let's sit down. And we just talked. We just talked about what we were comfortable with, what everyone was feeling, and I think by then, everyone pretty much trusted each other, was pretty much on the same page. So I was very, Sarah and Katya were extremely right. They're like, yeah, let's do it. Like, and yeah, we just kind of went for it, and we would do private check-ins before every rehearsal, like backstage, and like outside of ours, like me, Katya, and Sarah also talked just to kind of, especially the first few times, we were like, how's everyone feeling? I also think that, I think that I always feel like a little bit more responsible, especially being the guy in the scenario, wanting to really check in and be like, are you guys comfortable? Is there anything I can do different? Do you need to do you need to take a break one day? Really just maintaining like, it's okay to say, hey, I'm not comfortable with this. It's okay to say like, you know what, it's going okay, but I need to take a bit of a break or because you never know, it's a very, acting is a very intimate thing. And when you put intimacy scenes in front of that,
well, that's why. Yeah, I mean, it's got all the horrible stuff, but yeah, the intimacy. Now, some of the things you said about that are interesting. Did you guys have an intimacy coach, or because some of the terminology you're using came directly from this woman that I interviewed that did the granite stuff, and about checking in and figuring out, today, don't touch me there. I feel I either have pain or I don't. Now they were jumping on couch because there's a comedy. They're jumping on couches and throwing each other around and stuff like that, but it was also body to body and all that, and crotch to crotch. I'm sorry, it was. And so, did you guys have any kind of a coach or a pamphlet, or just you instinctively knew this is how you should do it?
Yeah, I had a bit. I was very fortunate to about a year ago. This time a year ago, I did View from the Bridge up in Marblehead, at Marblehead Little Theater, and we had an intimacy coach there. And I had done intimacy training before school. So kind of having that, so we had an intimacy coach for that show. So I kind of had a bit of a refresher. So I knew I have not done intimacy coaching. Like that's never, been my title on a program, but I knew going into it what a lot of the fundamentals were, what a lot of the principles were. So I was kind of just taking that and using that as a bit of a guide and really just trying to, So no, but at the same time, we knew I had that training, and Jacob, you kind of knew as well what kind of the fundamentals were for everyone having consent, everyone feeling safe.
Yeah, that was a big thing for us, was making sure that everybody felt safe at all times doing anything, especially when it came to both the intimacy sequences and the torture sequences, because at any moment's notice, like our brain can switch on a dime. You never know when any type of emotion will bubble up underneath you. And so it's really important to do those check-ins. My stage manager and best friend Shania is incredible, and she is the one who implemented all of the intimacy check-ins. They were mandatory before every tech rehearsal and every performance, for all of the lead actors who had any type of intimacy scenes to check in with each other personally. And also we would do like run throughs of the scenes like lightly before tech runs or performances, and have everybody clear out of the room. Like when we had those scenes going on in the apartment, nobody was allowed in that room.
Yeah.
It was completely off limits. Everybody had to stay in the office where all of the loudspeaker stuff was filmed, or they had to stay backstage in the wings with me, because it was really important that Timmy, Sarah, and Katya felt incredibly comfortable, because in that scene, especially scene 5, where they're taking their clothes off and everything, they need to feel comfortable, and they need to make it look like their characters are comfortable. And if they are already uncomfortable, they're going to be walking around like they're
work.
It's not going to work.
Right.
And so we really tested the waters a lot. We had about like 4 or 5 private intimacy rehearsals where one day I would text them or they would text me saying like, hey, we think we want to meet up today. I'd go to the theater, unlock, and we just do the scenes in the dressing rooms while nobody was there. I would make sure it was a day that on the calendar, nobody was in the theater, so that it would just be us testing the waters and making sure that everybody was okay and comfortable. And we also did the same thing with the torture sequence. We would check in, we do a lot of mental health check-ins with people, especially since we had 2 minors who were taking part in the torture sequence.
Yeah, I saw them. I saw them at one point. I went,
so they're
some of the most mature children I've ever met in my life. Holy moly.
Like, it's actually insane how those 2 kids like carry themselves like 30-year-olds. It's really insane. So the 2 of them were like, we want to be a part of this sequence. And I was like, I can't say yes until I talk to your parents. And when their parents came to pick them up, I asked both of them, and Timmy can literally be, and they were both like, why are they not in the scene?
Yeah. They're like,
oh boy.
They were like, put my kid in the torture scene.
Yeah.
Stage parents gone mad.
But they were the coolest people. That like shout out to Kelly, Russ, Hillary, for being like the coolest stage parents ever. Like truly being so excited for their kids to be doing the craziest shit.
Yeah, that was awesome.
It was awesome. But yeah, so we did a lot of check-ins to make sure that everybody was comfortable, everybody was mentally sound and healthy, because me personally, I was going through a really difficult time during the performances. So it was very important for me to make sure that everybody was on the same, I had the same mental bandwidth.
But let's flip then now to the torture. Now, I read things online and I kind of went, not for the show, but talking about if you go to look for the play, Wikipedia or whoever's hawking the show, people leave and they're vomiting, audience, they're vomiting and they're pulling up their hair and they're losing. And, I went, really? But I didn't vomit. But I was really uncomfortable, and I know that's what you wanted. So I'm sitting there going, okay.
So this was really the first one where I was very adamant, like, it has to be done in the Blue Box. It can't be done anywhere else but this room, because it's so intimate, and it reminds me of how Academy, before they expanded separate spaces, we had one really small space that was about 80 seats, from, I want to say it was from like 2014 until mid 2018. It's the same building, and everything. It was completely different. And so I wanted to kind of go back to that energy of when I saw Spring Awakening, which was my first show I ever saw at Academy for the first time. And I felt so connected to everything because it was right there. And the tech in that show was beautiful. And I just really wanted to go back to that feel. And so I was very adamant of, we need to have it in this room, or else it's just not going to have that emotional connection with the audience that it would. It really would not work on any other stage besides that type of smaller floor, like almost the thrust type of stage. So yeah, that was.
Let's jump to torture. Figured. I mean, we like intimacy, but we do indeed love torture.
Love torture.
And part of it has to do with lighting and music and acting. And I didn't know. I guess the character is tortured, and so but it was creepy. You lose the fact, and again, it sounds like I'm blowing smoke, but I'm not, that especially you, Tim, that you're losing your personality. You're losing Tim. And I'm watching a character and I'm watching another character, other characters, but the big burly men, or two or three of them, they were really scary, okay? And I'm sure you're going to now tell me, oh, they're teddy bears. And that's lovely. I'm sorry, I didn't feel that. I felt no, and again, I can look at something and going, okay, this guy's playing Dracula, or another one I can think of. Wait Until Dark. He's playing horrible, awful guy. But even as I'm watching it, if I know, but I'm going, okay, the guy's he's doing good, but he's an actor. Okay, I don't believe he's a psychopath. I thought these guys were psychopaths. Okay, I got out of that theater really fast when it was over. Okay,
I love sticking around.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. So Tim, I mean, you still have to, and I mean, I've obviously we all watch the things on YouTube and that about great actors, great method actors talking about how they get to where they need to be. But at the same time, you got lines, you've got things you've got to give other actors. You can't all of a sudden just go off into something land. You've got to always be grounded in what you're doing as an actor, wherever whatever part it's coming from your body. But at the same time, all this stuff is going on around you that if it were real would be really bad.
Oh, yeah.
So how did you, I mean, obviously it came slowly. You would block where the wires come and all this stuff and who's doing what, when. And then it's building you. That's how rehearsals go. But how did you deal with that?
It was, what's funny is anytime someone asks me a question like this, I had a director back in college who would say, especially during dress rehearsal, during tech, or in going to shows, he was like, just do it. And that's kind of it's I don't know how to explain it. Like you were right. It's like, first comes the blocking, then you kind of memorize the lines, then you add the lighting, the sound, the blood. You add things layer by layer, and at some point it goes, okay, I know it. I know what comes next. I know what I need to do. Don't even think about it, and you just kind of it just goes naturally. And it's funny because in those moments when, especially in those really intense physical moments, if I started thinking about what comes next, I would start to lose myself. I'd be like, oh, now it's going to be too technical. It's going to be too rehearsed. But no, it was just, we knew our stuff. We all trusted each other. We knew what was going to come next. We just let it happen. And I've also been very fortunate that, I have a very strong group of friends and family, a very good, emotional work. So it was kind of easy for me to leave that at the theater, go home, not have to think about it and like, oh, what did I do wrong? What did Jacob yell at me about? I'm kidding. No, and in fact, actually, I do shout out to Jacob, who after every rehearsal came up, asked how I was doing, asked if I was okay, if I needed anything. And so thank you for that, Jacob. But no, I've always been very fortunate that I can leave all that intensity, all that emotion at the door and go home, and be Tim, not Winston. Not to say, but there were moments where it really felt real. Like, especially like the first day we used the blood, and Jacob can attest to that. It's like seeing that, you're like, oh my God, like this is real. Like this is, but in a weird way, it's not, to me, it wasn't uncomfortable. It wasn't like, oh, this is scary. It was like, this is real. This is awesome. People are going to see this. Like, this is, people are going to really feel it now. Like, this is, it was a, I have a lot of background in tech. So seeing all that seamless combination of all the tech, the costumes, the props, the effects, the sound, the light, the blood, all come together with the acting. It was like it felt special, felt nice. It felt good.
Never existed.
It exists in the mind, in memories. I remember it. You remember it.
I do not remember it.
Double think. You're a lunatic. You actually don't remember.
And if the party says it is not 4, but 5, how many are there?
4.
No, but this is just as it comes to my brain right now, talking about props, and you said it about things, the props about the books. The books, 10,000 books. And you have to walk fast on the stage. Of course, when I was there, it was strike night. So they were starting to, and so, when anyone does walls of books, bookcases, it's just fronts. You literally had
books.
Where'd you get 10,000 books and cover them white?
Shout out to the Cranston Public Libraries, Exeter Public Libraries, and Newport Public Libraries. They all donated their entire supply of unused books. For good reason. They are books that probably should not be on shelves, hence why we covered them all. I
have some right here, actually.
There were a lot of books, especially from more popular public libraries that were more about like fascism and stuff like that, and like pro-fascism type stuff, and it was like really old volumes of things. So I was like, they were like, we want to get rid of this, and I was like, sick, give it. And we basically spent a couple of days covering all of them, and we reconfigured those bookshelves up until our last tech rehearsal. We were moving stuff around, trying to figure out what felt right. But for me, having the physical books was really important, especially because part of Winston's job is literally destroying literature. So I felt like having all these books that are completely unidentifiable just worked really well for that.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Now, going back to the torture a little bit for you, Jacob. I mean, like you said, there's nothing in the script. And I don't even remember what's in the book, I think they mentioned, they may or may not mention electric shock. And I was just flipping through. I didn't watch a lot of it. William Hurt.
The John Hurt movie,
which that was good, but I kept scrolling through. I wanted to see how much did they do the teeth thing. I wanted to see what they used. But what you had to block the whole thing, right? So there's nothing there. What made you okay? This is how I want to do the electric stuff, because the shock therapy that pretty much is in book, movie, and everything. And then it was the teeth pulling either in the book or the script.
So the teeth pulling and the nail pulling, those both were inspired by the Broadway production, because those were parts of that show where O'Brien literally goes, teeth. And these people just stand up and in formation, they all close in on him. And the same similar kind of lighting effect kind of happens. It takes a little bit longer, and there's a lot more sound design and like crazy video stuff going on. But I really wanted that initial almost jump scare like shock of all these people just running and the lights going out, and you just hear Timmy screaming. It was interesting to block. So in the original script, a lot of this was not there. It was mainly Winston gets tied to a chair and you just hear electric shock sounds, and that's it. Even with the rat cage in the original script was just supposed to be a box put over his head. And I fully was like, okay, this was good for this time period of like when this was originally written. We need to go how this would really go in real life. And so the drawing, like him being strung up and everything. That was an idea that came from the movie, where John Hurt is placed on a stretching table. He's attached to it, and O'Brien is progressively stretching him out more and more and more and more as he's questioning him. That was the initial concept for that, and the idea initially was like, okay, how can we do this in a really crazy, like, it's hidden in plain sight the whole time. So the bungee cords are always on stage. They're never hidden at all. But it's kind of this thing where I had a lot of people coming up to me being like, I was wondering what the hell those cords were. And then when they came up, I was really hoping that they weren't going to be used for what I thought they were going to be used for. And I was like, well, sorry. So literally it was kind of like a oopsie, you should have read the book. So a lot of this was me really trying to infuse the sequence with some air of intensity, because it really didn't have that on the page. On the page, it was really, for lack of a better term, it was kind of boring. It was Winston gets tied to a chair, he gets electroshocked, and then they waterboard him. Like, that's kind of boring. It's kind of boring, but also, like, that's not how it's described in the book either. The book, it's a lot more intense as well. It's a lot more graphic and violent. So I really wanted to just lean into that intensity. I didn't want there to be any type of sanitation to it, because that's not the story we were telling. We were telling a very raw and very real story. And if we were to sanitize all of that, then it wouldn't have the effect that I wanted to communicate. All, especially with how broken Winston is at the end of the show, where he sees Julia in this cafe and they both are just completely like stones of human beings.
Zombies.
And that's kind of the direction I gave. I was like, you are dead. Like, on the inside, you are a walking corpse. There was a lot of metaphorical direction that went on, especially with the torture sequence.
One of the things, I think it's time to, we'll have much time that you guys want to say things you want to say, but I do want to talk, especially seeing the era we're in right now, that the book, my memory of the book, and I think most people, if you say 1984, they say Big Brother. Okay, so Big Brother is watching you and everything you're doing, and that's interesting and scary, and I don't have any privacy in this and that, which is scary all by itself. But the whole stuff about removing history, and I don't remember that at all. Okay, from the book when I read it as a kid, it was just you're being watched, and the concept now again. I want to now talk political. And the stuff that's going on now, that's one of the reasons, even after, I think it was after I saw the play, I went, Trump just tried, this is critical race theory and everything else, that he tried to take the stuff off George Washington's house. Yeah. And the theory is, if we take it away, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And that's really the modus he's trying to operate under. It's really scary.
It's really everything about, don't say, we don't want the stuff, anything that you say bad about America. No, America is good. And not only do we not want you to say it, but we're going to work the way so it's gone. So someone can't come up with it later. We can say it's going on now, but that's obviously, that's 1984. That's the book and the play, that they're ripping things. You guys can cover better than I am sure, but they're taking out, from books and from anything they can, and they don't want you talking about it. If you talk about it, you get in trouble. So it's going to take. I think in the play, in the book, it's going to take a long time. We can't do it overnight.
Yeah.
But eventually, the Civil War or slavery or the Holocaust, we won't have to worry anymore, because no one will know that exists.
Yeah. Well, that's the really there's a really uncomfortable truth about, like, history is written by the winner, and I shouldn't even say the winner. History is written by who's in charge, and we would like to think that the good guys have won throughout history, but that's not always true. So it's like, right now and today, the three of us know what's going on. We know it's like, no, this happened. This was right. But, as history gets changed, as history gets rewritten, in 40 years, they won't know that. And that's what's uncomfortable, is that, like, maybe there was something 100, 200, 300 years ago that happened that was objectively the right thing. But we would like to think the good guys won. They're in charge now. It's not always that way because we weren't there. We don't know what happened. Something, history could have been very different, but we won't know it because it was 200 years ago. And I would like to think in the age of the internet, for good or for worse, much more is recorded by the everyday citizen. But I think there's that portion. I think the other thing that what I got comfortable with 1984 is just how much, Winston really cares. He's in his head, he's a freedom fighter. He's an outlier, but he's like one of very little out there. Most of the population, like the proles, they just don't care. They don't care. They're either beaten down enough or they're old enough that that's like, yeah, we know what's going on, but whatever. Like, doesn't affect us. And that's the other uncomfortable thing today is like a lot of people just, they don't want to fight. They don't have the energy, or it doesn't affect them personally. So it's, who cares? And that's what gets me uncomfortable.
Well, and again, was right, like in the first couple of pages of the book, it keeps coming back several times, and I think there's a couple of phrases like that keep coming up in the play. But war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. And you think, well, that's ridiculous. And no, it's not. I mean, that it is ridiculous, but there are, and we don't have to use the MAGA word, but there are people out there that this is fine. This is a mantra that they. So, Jacob, you obviously, and I read your note that's in the program. Again, why you came to this, it wasn't just you thought it was cool theater, which I'm sure you did. But to tell us again your background from that you put in the program of why you worked 10 years to make this happen.
It really came from a place of fear. As soon as he was elected for his first term, I was 14, and I was probably the most scared to walk outside of my house that I've ever been in my entire life. I hated going to school. I hated being out in public, all because of how nonchalant people were being about it. And even more so, his second election, the amount of people that were just like, well, don't know what you expected. Like, that's a terrifying attitude. Just the complete lack of responsibility and integrity from a large portion of the American population really sent me into a spiral. And this book and this story was pretty much the only thing that captured why I'm so scared, and why I'm afraid of where our world is going. And like, I know that probably sounds really, really, for lack of a better term, douchey, coming from a cis white man who lives like lower middle class, but like still, like, I have a home, I have I have things to love and appreciate. So like, this is me acknowledging my privilege. I felt some sort of responsibility to out there that people are scared, people are afraid, and I felt like nobody was really doing that at all. I felt like people were kind of just sitting in place and putting up and shutting up, and I hated that. I still hate it. It boils my blood. And so I really got to work very quickly. I knew that at 14 I wasn't going to be able to get anybody to say yes. I kind of knew that off the bat. So I waited a couple of years, but in those couple of years I really refined it. I read the play a million times. I refined my pitch over and over and over again. I visited Artist Exchange, and I even worked for them for a couple of months to kind of get acclimated to everything. And I really put in the effort to try and make it, even from the original production that I was going to do, a piece that was not being done because it's 1984 and it's cool and it's got torture and sex and video and cool things. No, it was because this is about a man who, despite being terrified of the outcome, is forced to walk out of his house every day and ignore the absolute hellscape that he is walking through. And I don't want us to have to get to that point where we just ignore the fact that we're walking through a war zone. And it's starting to feel like we're getting to that point, especially with very recent news. It doesn't feel like anyone's talking about it. It feels like nobody is talking about the bombing that just happened. It's scary. This show always came from a place of me wanting to tell my side of the people that feel like they're too scared to say something, because there's been a large amount of fear instilled in us about not being able to say anything. And that's where the terror of newspeak really comes from, and the elimination of literature. And they didn't include this in our version, but in the book, like, they're even going so far as trying to abolish the orgasm. Like, they're really trying to control people as if they are literal machines. And it's scary because we're getting to that point. So I really wanted to just tell people, like, we're here, we're scared, and this isn't going to end until somebody steps up and says something. And even though Winston tries, he doesn't necessarily try all the right ways, but he tries the ways that feel right to him, and feel correct and passionate to him. Unfortunately, he does not come to win, but that is kind of just the reflection of what we're going through on a daily basis. There are plenty of people that step up and try to fight, but we have a system that's just pushing people down.
Now, Jacob, did any of this feeling enter into rehearsals at all? I mean, not snide comments, but somebody will say, yeah, well, Trump would have said that, or Hexas would probably like to do that. I mean, was that kind of, banter, which, again, like I say, you're doing a play which has as you've pointed out, a larger than the play reach to it. But you got to get your play done. So, but it did come in.
Absolutely. There were plenty of conversation about it because we were all a group of people who pretty much were on the same page politically, of being very much so not okay with what is going on and wanting to do anything and everything possible to put out some kind of effort to turn some form of tide. Obviously, a small community theater play isn't going to do astronomical things. I get that. But it still is something. It's still some beacon for some people. And we really wanted to treat it like that in the rehearsal process. So this is a show that people can come to and really see their situation and see that there's a creative team behind that sees them.
So what do you feel, Tim, as we're, going through the play and how it connects as you're rehearsing it and going home, and like I said, going home to your family, it isn't its own little play. As you said, it is, both of you said, it's a microcosm of what's going on. So what were your thoughts, or what are your thoughts now?
Well, it's. I remember me and one of my co-actors, Thomas. He and I had kind of agreed, like, wow, like, art for us it's an escape, but you're right, art is also political, and we found it tough sometimes, like going to rehearsal and they're like, wow, like we sit through this on the news, we live this, and now we have to go live it again when this should be our escape. Now, I also say that with also acknowledging my privilege. I get, sitting in my apartment, living a middle class life, and so I'm like, yeah, there's a bit of hypocrisy there, but it is. I think that I say this with a bit of trepidation, but I continue to be hopeful. That also is just something I've been taught to be. So I do. I can't tell you why.
How about you? I mean, you told me about 14. You're now older. What is your take on the world and in your future? So this is a light little podcast, by the way. Go ahead.
Yeah. No existentialism at all. I'm hopeful and I'm not. I'm hopeful because I think we've been proven time and time again that like humanity exists, and common decency does exist, in some groups of people. Don't know what the hell's going on in America. But no, I try to be hopeful, but there are definitely days, specifically days like yesterday, where that hope really diminishes very quickly. And it feels like I have to start back from square one. And I feel like that's how a lot of people end up feeling when they hear about this stuff, especially when it's stuff that we don't want. Mm-hmm. Nobody wanted this. Like people can say up the wazoo, we voted for him. Great. Even if that's the case. No one voted for this.
Nope.
Are you kidding me?
Nope.
Like again, the lack of responsibility and integrity from the American people is just absolutely dumbfounding. Yeah. So that is really what gets me, is the amount of people who are just so blasé about everything going on down in DC. I don't know who manufactured these people, what microchips they've had put in their heads. I'm confused. Don't know how much Call of Duty they've been playing, but like they need to disconnect, like touch some grass. I'm just very confused. It's really concerning the route that we're going down. So there are some days where I definitely do feel, okay, we're pushing towards something. We're getting towards something. We're getting towards something. And then days like yesterday happen. It all just sinks. So it's a win. It's a constant battle.
Anyway, let's wrap up, folks. So the two of you guys, I'll give you, if you want to plug anybody that, at the theaters, you want to tell me what you're doing next, that kind of thing. So maybe we'll get, again, this will be out, not more than a week. So things going that are going to open a couple of weeks from now, there'll be some press for it by doing this, and you guys can share it wherever you want. So what if you got anything, you're starting another 10-year quest here, Jacob?
I actually might be pretty soon, actually. Yeah. I just recently started working on an adaptation of Macbeth. So I'm currently writing that. And otherwise, I'm working on pitching some other shows around. Some shows that I don't really want to say yet because the rights just came out for them, and I really don't want to lose luck. But it's a wacky, crazy, bloody, fun show.
Got all the good stuff.
Yeah, it's got all the fun stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much what's going on with me.
Timid.
I've got the short term future. I'm kind of taking a bit of a break because I got some weddings coming up that my cousin's getting married and a good friend of mine's getting married, so I have to do a lot of traveling, a lot of spending.
Yeah. Got your bachelor parties, you got your all that stuff.
Got my parties. Yeah, I got to get all the hotel rooms, but Academy is doing Rock of Ages. That I want to be involved with that. That seems like a really, really fun one. So yeah, short term, nothing much, but after that, kind of just seeing how I can get back involved in the Rhode Island theater scene, the community theater scene. I'll never forget one of my friends when I started getting back involved in community theater. He asked me, he goes, "Do you guys get paid?" I'm like, "Nope." And he goes, "Oh, so you guys just do it for the love of the game?" And I'm like, "That's always stuck." And I'm like, "Yep." So to kind of go back to your point, like,
so anything you want to say bye, and anything you left out, say hi to your friends, your loved ones, whatever.
If anybody is interested in anything else going on at Academy, we got a bunch of shows coming up. We got Annie opening up in a couple of weeks. We got Dear Evan Hansen opening up auditions in May. We got a bunch of other stuff. There's Sigmund, an original play that's being written by Brian Mulhern. West Side Story is going up in April. We got Dancing with the Academy Stars just actually happened last night, which was very successful. And Rock of Ages is going to be the closer of the season. So they got a bunch of stuff for a whole lot of people to come out and try out for.
It's a great theater. It's a very comfortable theater.
Yeah.
Just physically. And again, I wasn't in the main stage, but I got to pass by it, and that looked really nice. But I love Black Box. I grew up on Black Box. I grew up on thrust theaters. With you can't have scenery, and it's just a couple of chairs. That's all you can have. And so I do like that versus things flying in and out, whatever. But there's a place for that, and that's great. But it's never like you said. You don't do this or you don't do that kind of theater. You like this kind, and so there's again with the two stages. There's a little something for everyone.
Yes.
So I want to thank Jacob King, and I want to thank Tim Brown for joining us today on another opening.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, man.